The worst thing that could happen is just a feeling. Brianna West. Sit with that for a moment. Because one of the most challenging parts of practicing Stoicism is managing our emotions when dealing with people who are not acting virtuously. That can mean something as small as an insult. It can mean betrayal, malice, or in the most extreme case, physical violence. How does a Stoic respond to these situations appropriately? How do we remain composed without becoming passive? And how do we stand our ground without surrendering control of ourselves? Let's begin with what happens inside your head. The process looks something like this, usually. First, someone does something. Second, you find it offensive. It makes you angry. It makes you sad, embarrassed, insecure. Some emotion we might call negative. Third, you get the opportunity to respond. And yes, it is an opportunity to respond. But let's pick that apart a little bit, those 3 steps. Notice that the first step is simply someone does something. It's not someone does something offensive. Why? Why am I choosing my words carefully there? Well, the distinction matters because the things that people say and do are not inherently offensive in and of themselves. We add that judgment, us as individuals. We assign meaning and value to what happened. It doesn't come with it. The term offensive, sure, it may be an overused word now, but if something produces a strong emotional response in you, some part of you has taken offense. That response can vary widely. One person gets angry, another person turns inward and starts attacking himself. The same person might feel embarrassed in one situation and furious in another. There's no one-size-fits-all emotional response, not even within yourself. We're very complex, complicated human beings, and our emotions are just as complicated and complex. Epictetus said in Enchiridion 5, people are disturbed not by things, but by the views they take of them. And that's fundamentally the point here. But this raises the real question here. And the real question is, why would something another person says or does bother us? Now, from the Stoic perspective, rationally, it shouldn't. Or at least it shouldn't control us. And there are several reasons for that. And understanding them is itself one of the ways we learn to deal with these feelings. Simply by understanding something can give us power over. It's strange when you think about it because our reactions are not universal. A comment about someone's height may bother them deeply or not at all. Calling someone lazy may make one person laugh while another person becomes embarrassed or defensive. The words are the same, but the reaction is different, which points to that law that no, it's not the thing that was said that is offensive. It's our judgment of the thing. It's the perspective that we put on it. It's our opinions. That difference, the fact that 2 people can hear the same thing, one getting offended and one not, that difference points to something inside the person hearing them. If a particular comment bothers you, it is probably touching something specific about you. But what? What is it? What is this thing that it is touching? There's a psychological idea that the things we hate in other people are often the things we hate about ourselves. I think that's true but perhaps not exactly in the way that many people assume it's true. You might hate something you believe you already are, or you might hate something that you're terrified of becoming. Now, those are two very different things. Imagine someone who is physically strong, but hates the idea of being weak. Maybe he was teased as a kid for being too skinny, and he developed this hunger to go to the gym and lift weights and become strong. That experience may have created some sense of self-hatred, and that self-hatred eventually may have driven him to the gym. He may no longer be physically weak, but he can still feel contempt towards people who are. It's not necessarily that he hates them. He hates the version of himself that they represent. He doesn't want to go back. Now, this is why you have to be careful about how you pursue change. You can want to become stronger without hating yourself for being weak. You can want to become more disciplined without despising the undisciplined person you are today. If hatred is the fuel you use to transform yourself, you may carry that hatred with you after the fact, after you transform into something better. Eventually, you'll aim it at people who remind you of who you used to be. And so be very careful about what's fueling you to get better. Now, there's another reason people get under our skin: ego. When I was a teenager, I used to get angry when people joked about me being stupid. And I really do mean jokes. If I misspelled a word or if I stumbled over a common saying and someone made a harmless comment, it bothered me. And why? It took me years to figure this out. Well, the reason was because I had attached my self-worth to my intelligence. An insult to my intelligence was an insult to my entire being. The joke wasn't threatening my intelligence, it was threatening my identity, the identity I had built around being intelligent. I wasn't willing to let people see that I was imperfect. And that's ego. And beneath that ego was insecurity. And insecurity points towards something you haven't made peace with in yourself. When someone touches it, even accidentally, it brings the insecurity to the surface, then the emotional response follows. The stronger the identity, the more fiercely we tend to defend it. Marcus Aurelius says in Meditations 4.7, choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been. There's one more lens worth examining, and that is that of entitlement. Entitlement is the belief that the world owes you something. You then become angry when the world refuses to provide it. Now, teenagers offer just an obvious example, so I apologize to my teenage listeners. I was one too, I get it. But if a teenager believes he is entitled to receive a car when he turns 16, he will feel mistreated when his parents say, no, you are not getting a car. Now, the event itself is simple. He didn't get a car. The suffering comes from the belief that he was supposed to get one, and that's what entitlement is. Now, this is also an issue of the self, and it is closely related to ego. A person may hate the fact that they cannot provide something for themselves. They become dependent on another person to provide it, then resent that person when the expectation isn't met. So ultimately, it still flows back to you. All of our problems ultimately fall back towards ourselves. The same thing happens with respect, recognition, affection, obedience, and fairness. We decide that someone owes us a particular response. Then, when they act differently, we feel personally wronged. Now, let's get into what the common thread is. But first, I have to request something for you, dear listener. If you can do a couple things for me, it would be much appreciated. The best thing you can do, the absolute best thing you can do if you want to help support this show, click that share button. Share this episode with a friend. If you find this useful, perhaps they would as well, and maybe you can actually help a friend out. So that is the best thing you can do for me. However, if you want to support in another way, a 5-star review, wherever you're listening to this, helps a ton. This show has never done ads. I like to support myself through the podcast, through listeners, through volunteers that are willing to give me support on Patreon or Substack, or just with action. And that action can be as simple as sharing this episode with a friend or giving me a 5-star review. It is much appreciated. Now, back to the show. What's the common thread? When you really get down to it, the things that bother you about other people often reveal something about you. Everything is a reflection of self. Now, that may expose an insecurity. It may threaten an identity. It may awaken an old fear or violate an expectation you believe the world was obligated to meet. There are many lenses through which we can examine the reaction, but they keep bringing us back to the same place, the self. That's why the same thing doesn't bother everyone. If there was something that bothered everyone universally, every single person on the planet, maybe there's an argument, but that isn't true. The event matters. The other person's conduct matters. But your particular reactions tell you something about what is happening inside you. That isn't a reason to blame yourself for everything another person does. It's simply a reason to take responsibility for yourself, for what's in your control. And that gives us somewhere to begin. So, I'm going to give you some items here, some things that you can think about on how to actually get better at this. How do we stop being controlled by other people? Here are 7. Number 1, understand the reaction. The first best advice I can give you is to simply try and understand yourself. Understand why it's happening. If the thing that's upsetting you points to something about yourself, then clearly that means that you have to learn to understand yourself. Now, you can do this through journaling, through reflecting. You can talk to someone you trust, go to therapy if you need to. When something upsets you, ask yourself these questions. Why did that particular comment bother me? What did it seem to say about me? What am I afraid might be true? What did I believe this person owed me? Sometimes understanding the source of a reaction creates enough distance for reason to step back in. You don't have to deny the emotion. You simply have to investigate it. And as a matter of fact, this tactic is the one that got me out of this thing I suffered from as a teenager, where someone making a comment or a joke about me being stupid for whatever reason would upset me. I simply traced it back. I understood it. I understood why that response happened inside of me. And pretty much instantaneously, all the disgruntlement about it went away. It's a very powerful thing, but it takes a lot of work. But if you can simply understand why, a lot of times it can alleviate the suffering. The second approach I can say is to simply say to yourself, look, I want to be a good person. And what would a good person do? Sometimes it's as simple as that. Remind yourself to be kind to people when they don't deserve it. Be the bigger person. Not because you're weak and not because their behavior is acceptable, but because their lack of character does not justify abandoning your character. This is a form of self-inspiration, if you will. You're reminding yourself of the person that you are trying to become before your emotions decide for you. You can be firm and still be kind. You can enforce a boundary without becoming cruel. You can defend yourself without allowing another person to choose your character for you. Marcus Aurelius says in Meditation 6.6, the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. Number 3, remember that it is a feeling. The third technique here brings us back to the opening line of this episode. I said the worst thing that can happen is, at some point, experienced as a feeling. We get buried beneath imagined futures. We worry about things that haven't happened. We become disturbed by something we think is going to happen, or how something might feel like when it does happen. But what we fear eventually arrives in the body and mind as sensation, emotion, and thought. That doesn't make pain harmless. It doesn't make violence acceptable. And it certainly doesn't mean you should remain in danger. What it does mean is that the feeling does not automatically get to command your actions. Even intense pain must be navigated moment by moment. If you experience a feeling without immediately acting from it, when you are able to do so, that is a victory. The feeling can be real without becoming your master. Number 4, accept what has happened. I know, what an easy thing. Just accept what has happened. Well, Epictetus said, don't demand that things happen as you wish, but wish that they happen as they do happen, and you will go on well. That is much easier to repeat than it is to live, of course. But this is the Stoic concept of providence, the belief that events belong to a larger order that we cannot fully see. You might say everything happens for a reason. That's great. You may simply call it accepting reality. Either way, the practical point is the same. What happened has happened. Your approval is not required. The cosmos is not submitting a document for you to sign. It's just doing what it does. What happened may not be best for your comfort. It may not make you feel great. It may not be what you wanted. But once it has occurred, refusing to accept its reality only adds more suffering. Isn't that foolish of us? We add suffering by overanalyzing things and challenging the way that things are when they've already happened. It's very irrational. Acceptance does not mean endorsement. It simply means that you stop arguing with the fact that the event occurred and begin deciding what to do about it. And that's the Stoic response in a nutshell. Number 5, remove yourself. This 5th technique is simple. Just leave. If a situation is becoming intense and you feel as though you're about to explode, remove yourself. It might be the wisest option. You might object that, well, the Stoics taught that our environment shouldn't matter. I hear that a lot. That isn't quite right. The idea is that external circumstances should not determine our character. But you are not always perfectly rational. Neither am I. That's why we're practicing Stoicism in the first place. There is no virtue in remaining inside a situation simply to prove that you can tolerate it. That's foolishness, especially if staying means you're likely to do something that you'll regret later. Step outside, go for a walk, put the phone down, end the conversation for now. Creating distance is not always avoidance. Sometimes it's discipline. Just get out. Period. Number 6, have empathy for the other person. The 6th technique is to have empathy. The Stoics believe that virtue is the path to genuine happiness. So if someone is behaving viciously, irrationally, maliciously, then by Stoic standards, that person is already living badly. And none of us are sages. All of us fall somewhere short of perfect wisdom. We are simply at different stages of the path. You wouldn't become furious with a child who hasn't learned to use a spoon yet, so why are you becoming consumed with rage towards someone who has never learned to manage his emotions? That doesn't excuse harmful behavior. It doesn't mean that what they did is right. Compassion and boundaries can exist together, and I did a whole episode on setting boundaries. You can prevent someone from harming you without hating them. You can hold someone accountable while recognizing that their behavior comes from ignorance, pain, weakness, or some combination of the three. Feel sorry for them, and not in a condescending way, but in a way with compassion. Marcus Aurelius said in Meditations, whenever you are about to find fault with someone, ask yourself the following question. What fault of mine most nearly resembles the one I am about to criticize? Look inward. Number 7. This is one you may not find in many philosophical discussions. This is a strong Stoic one right here. But take care of yourself. Take care of your body. Take care of your health. Yes, the Stoic sage, in theory, could remain virtuous while exhausted, while sedentary, while eating nachos on the couch. But you are not a Stoic sage, and neither am I. So give yourself the best chance at having a good mood and not being irritable. Go to sleep at a reasonable time, eat well, exercise, spend time outside, recover properly. A surprising amount of irritability comes from being tired, underfed, overstimulated, or just physically neglected. Your body is not an excuse for poor character, but It is part of the terrain on which character is tested. Everything becomes harder when you are exhausted, including being patient, rational, and fair. So take care of yourself. Give yourself a shot. Give the sun a chance to find you. That's a lyric from a Great Big Sea song. In closing, other people will insult you. They will. You're a human being. You're on planet Earth. People are going to insult you. They're going to misunderstand you. Many will disappoint you. You're going to be disappointed by people your whole life. And a few may act with genuine malice. There are people who are intentionally trying to hurt you. And you cannot control that. That's one of the things that Epictetus says is outside of your control. But what you can control, or at least learn to control, is what their behavior awakens inside you and what you choose to do next. Your goal should not be to become emotionless. That's not the Stoic path. Your goal should be to handle your emotions appropriately, examine the wound, question the judgment, leave if you need to leave, be mature, defend yourself when you need to defend yourself, sure, but don't let someone else's lack of virtue take yours with it. The feeling is real, but it is still just a feeling. And you still have a choice about what happens next.